Hello, everyone, and welcome back to our Planetarium show and our first official Spooktober show. We're really excited to be doing these Halloween themed shows throughout the month. And yeah, so I'm Jessica. I am the Planetarium director. I got off my normal spiel, so I forgot where I'm at. Um, I'm Jessica. With me, we've got three of the students who work at the planetarium. One probably familiar face if you've been here before, and a couple of new people who have joined us, but I'll let them all say hi and introduce themselves. And we'll start with Eli.
Hi, my name is Eli. I'm a physics and astronomy student at UMD.
Rachel?
Hi, my name is Rachel. I'm a biology major and environmental science student.
And last.
Hello, I'm Braden. I'm a music education major at UMD.
So to start off our Spooktober show lineup, we are going to be taking a look at Halloween itself, because believe it or not, it does have some astronomical influence. So Eli is going to be telling us all about that tonight. As always, though, if you have any questions throughout the show, feel free to leave them down in the comments. I'm going to be keeping an eye on those, and we'll let Eli know as questions come up. We'll also have time at the end for questions as well. So with that, Eli, it is all yours.
Alrighty. So let me know if the sharing goes all right. Does that look good?
Yep, looks good.
Okay, sweet. All right. So, like Jessica said, we are talking about the history of Halloween today, and kind of diving into its astronomical significance, which there is quite a lot of actually. And I didn't know this prior to putting the show together 2 years ago, 3 years ago, for one of the Halloween events at Planetarium, but it's actually really interesting. So Halloween, as we know it, is this kind of fun, lighthearted, sometimes scary, depending on the movies that you watch, occasion. But not only is it fun to like dress up and run around with your friends and count out your haul at the end of the night if you're of trick-or-treating age, but it's extremely interesting to trace the history back to its beginnings over thousands of years ago. So Halloween's origins are pretty hazy at best, as a mixing pot of influences from different cultures and different times have shaped it into what it is as we know today. But we can trace some of those origins back as far as the ancient Celts of Scotland. Our first evidence of something resembling Halloween is called Samhain, which is a Celtic festival practiced in Old Scotland that began around 2,000 years ago. The Celts didn't have written language at the time, and therefore there are no written descriptions of the event, but anthropologists have been able to piece together a pretty good idea of what the festival was by tracing it back through history, recovered artifacts, things like that, and it bears very, very strong resemblances to Halloween. So we will actually start by taking kind of a broad look at what are called the cross-quarter days. So to the Gaelic Celtic people, the end of summer marked the turn of the year. Their year was divided into harvest season, which was spring and summer, and the dark season, which was fall and winter. And these seasons were split up pretty evenly, exchanging on what are called cross-quarter days. The solstices, June 21st and December 21st, are the days where the sun is highest and the lowest in the sky, respectively. And the equinoxes are the days perfectly between those two, where the sun is at an equal height in the sky, perfectly between its path of up and down. So the equinoxes take place usually on March and September 21st, but it can be off by like a year here or there, or a day here or there. These cross-quarter days take place between the solstices and equinoxes. So we've kind of got a couple moving parts here. But that means that there are 4 cross-quarter days. One is on February 6th, one is on May 6th, one's on August 6th, and one is on November 6th. There was a festival on each cross-quarter day, and all 4 of these were called the fire festivals, as fire represents or symbolizes something different on each one. So, and I'm going to try my best not to butcher these pronunciations. Jessica, I know you can probably pronounce them better than I can. But the first one, Imbolc, was the one celebrated on February 6th. And it was a celebration of fire and candles, symbolizing the melting of snow and rebirth of the summer. The kind of artifact you're seeing here is called Brigid's Cross, which is a common Imbolc decoration. Then we have Beltane or Beltane, I've also seen it pronounced. Yep. This took place on May 6th, and it was a celebration of life and the greening of earth, as well as fertility, livestock, marriage, and the fire of love. So the image seen here is a kind of a modern day Beltane festival, in which it's common to host fire dances and outside celebrations. Now, Jessica, this is the one I'm really going to need you to help me out with.
Yeah, this is the one, remember, that I didn't know this one.
Well, as it looks like it's pronounced, well, so that's not how it looks here, but like phonetically, I have it written out, and it looks like it's pronounced Lunaza. So I'm going to run with that.
We'll go with that, yeah.
Lunaza takes place on August 6th to celebrate the beginning of the harvest and grain cooking. Samhain, which is the last cross-border day practiced on and around November 6th, was the most important to the Celts. That was kind of I guess I don't really know a better way to put it, kind of the Christmas of the cross-border days. And it's common to see homemade, often decorated scarecrows outside on Lunaza in the Isles today. All right, so let's just go back to the cross quarters for a minute. There are modern day counterparts to these celebrations as well, all stemming from astronomical markers these ancient peoples observed long before the invention of modern math, science, instruments that could measure time accurately and stuff like that. We know Imbolc's equivalent as Groundhog Day, the supposed first day of spring, depending on whether the groundhog goes out for a stroll or not. Beltane to us is May Day, which is a celebration of summer and the closing of the door on harsh winters and muddy springs, which we all know too well here in Duluth. Lunaza is the modern day, or is paralleled by modern day Lammas, I believe is how it's pronounced. But it's not really celebrated here in the United States. It's celebrated more in the British Isles and Eastern Europe.
I was going to say, I know that day as Lammas.
Lammas, yeah. And that's a celebration of like wheat harvest. And typically people will bake loaves of breads or sweets and bring them to churches or places of congregation and celebrate with the local community whenever that comes around. Functionally, these festivals were for taking stock of food, slaughtering livestock, and divine worship. The Celtic people were pagans, which means that they didn't practice any of the major world religions we know, due to the fact that they either hadn't been invented yet or hadn't been introduced to that area yet. We don't see any cultural mixing in terms of religion. At this time, and again, this is 2,000 years ago, the largest religions were Judaism and Buddhism, with Confucianism, Hinduism, and Taoism on the rise as well. But most of those are Eastern Asian religions, and nothing from that list had really made its way to the British Isles yet. These religions were also followed by Christianity and Islam, and those didn't reach Central and Western Europe for a few centuries as well. So pagan religions were predominant in the British Isles and Scandinavia, and were very often polytheistic, meaning they believed in many gods. A lot of these gods or deities were related to nature and its power, and were used to rationalize poorly understood phenomena or happenings like the sky or space. And speaking of space, space was very, very poorly understood by these people at this time, because technology really hadn't gotten there yet for these people. I mean, telescopes worldwide were only used for astronomical viewing in the 1600s. So back 2,000 years ago, space, namely the Milky Way, was thought to be much more supernatural and sometimes kind of sinister. So we'll talk about that as we talk about Samhain. So on Samhain, which remember is that cross-border day celebrated around the beginning of November, it was common to prepare for winter by storing food, getting firewood, and fortifying your home and stuff. But it was not solely for preparation. It was also a very, very religious holiday. With the fierce cold winter fast approaching, it was a time for worship and prayer and thanks to the gods, and kind of a time to appease them so as not to bring down a really devastating winter. So during this time of year, the Celts thought the Milky Way acted as a bridge between the overworld, or like our world, and the other world, which can also be thought of as the underworld, or the home of the deities, demons, things like that. With this bridge in place, which at this time was highly visible in that area, the souls of the dead and demons alike were free to traverse to the overworld. So they thought of the Milky Way as kind of this connector between the two. And they thought that when the Milky Way was very visible, they were at significant risk from attacks from those, demons, things like that. Part of this divine, part of the divine worship practiced during Samhain included the honoring of souls lost in the last year that were in the process of traveling across the Milky Way. A common method was called mumming or guising, in which people would sing or recite songs at doorsteps while dressed in kind of vaguely human costumes to represent the souls being honored in exchange for parts of the meals people were having. So you can kind of see a little bit of relationship with trick-or-treating starting at this time. Another angle some anthropologists look at the mumming from is that of self-preservation. So with the separation between the overworld and the otherworld thinned out, some people think that they would wear disguises so that malevolent spirits with grudges wouldn't actually know who they were because they were disguised. So they would kind of, they would get avoided or they wouldn't get accosted. And they also think that the songs that they sang were like protective to ward off those malevolent spirits. It's also thought that the reason people would share their meals is to act in caution of oh, what if this is like a spirit that's at my door and not actually a person? So they would try to be as nice as they could so as not to displease any spirits further. All right, that image is so terrifying, I can't stand it. But another common practice during this festival was hollowing out turnips, because the pumpkins weren't in the area at the time, and placing candles in them to provide light for those mumming at night. So when traditions moved to the Americas in the 1600s and 1700s, pumpkins were used instead of turnips due to the popularity of pumpkins in the United States. Or, well, I suppose it wasn't the United States at that time quite yet, but in that area. Alrighty, here's another pronunciation I'm definitely going to butcher. So we're going to talk about Kalan Gaif is the pronunciation we'll give, and I just realized I misspelled that right there. Excuse me for that. Kalan Gaif is the how it's spelled out. Another pagan festival, which is called Kalan Gaif, is very much like Samhain, although it originated in another location. At this point in history, Celtic people were super widespread and spoke many different languages, one of those being Scottish Gaelic. Another was Brittonic, which was the language of the Welsh Celts. And to the Welsh Celts, Kalan Gaif was the first day of winter, and the day before was celebrated as like a winter's eve type thing. On winter's eve, it was important to exhaust yourself of all summer desires, such as like celebration, partying, and like courting or flirtation. So they would have these big like party festivals where they would try to get all that energy out before they had to literally stay inside to survive during the winter. One popular tradition of Kalan Gaif was apple bobbing. But apple bobbing isn't solely from Kalan Gaif. It also kind of came out or got way more popular from the Roman invasion of Ireland. So the Romans introduced Ireland to the apple tree, which is a symbol for the deity of love and marriage, Pomona. And those celebrating would bob for apples, and if successful, were foretold to be married in the next year. Now, I will be honest, I don't think I've ever seen bobbing for apples done at Halloween anywhere except for like the Peanuts movie, but it is still a tradition for that. The next kind of tradition that we see is bonfire. So Kalan Gaif, much like Samhain, was not all fun games and good fortune telling. It was also a day of frightening premonitions. The harsh winters on the British Isles would almost certainly always claim lives, and the British Celts believed this could be foretold. During the day, the festivities, feasts, and fun would go on, and then at night, the much more somber process of lighting bonfires began. So once the bonfires were lit, the townsfolk would write their names on rocks and throw them in, and once the rocks were in, they immediately ran home in fear. Their fear was of the tailless black sow, a sinister pig led by a headless nun or a witch, who would capture them if they weren't quick enough getting home. And that is kind of akin to like the headless horseman in a way. Although I'll be honest, headless nun riding a pig sounds a lot more scary than just some guy riding a horse. Okay, so now it would be an incomplete description of Halloween as we know it today if we didn't talk about the influence of Christianity on it. So many years later, in Roman Italy, All Saints' Day, which is also called All Hallows' Day, was conceived as a day to honor the saints and martyrs that had served the Catholic religion. While the holiday wasn't conceived to replace Samhain, it was strategically placed to do just that. Pope Gregory IV, in an attempt to snuff out paganism in the continent, placed All Hallows' Eve on October 31st, and All Hallows' Day on November 1st in hopes of minimizing the importance of Samhain and instead bringing the attention to All Hallowtide, which is the week surrounding All Hallows' Eve. So on All Hallows' Eve, it was popular to mourn the dead saints in a rather frightening way. Criers and commemorators would walk down the streets dressed in all black, not unlike nuns, wailing, crying, and screaming in remembrance of those they lost. That sounds absolutely horrific. In the Middle Ages, costumes on Halloween made a reappearance. Less fortunate churches were unable to pay for display paintings, statues, or sculptures of saints. So they suggested that churchgoers actually dress as the saints themselves to remember them. So we kind of see another instance of wearing like a costume coming in. Oopsie. There we go. So soon after All Hallows' Day was established, so was All Souls' Day, a day to remember Christians that were not saints of the church. All Souls' Day was extremely similar, except it dealt with the idea of purgatory rather than heaven. So if a Christian was unbaptized, it was not believed that they would be permitted entrance to heaven, and All Souls' Day was established to ease and pacify those souls caught in the in-between. Church bells were rung all throughout the day, candles were left out on doorsteps to give them light, and people tended to stay inside so as not to encounter the souls of these kind of begrudged people caught in the middle. The Protestant Reformation saw the end of All Hallows' Day and All Souls' Day as they disagreed with the dogma of like purgatory and unholy souls. And as the Lutheran Church rose in popularity, the Catholic Church fell, and as did All Souls' Day. So it kind of died out. Now, another interesting thing to talk about is Dia de los Muertos. So the central Southern American counterpart to All Hallows-Tide is Dia de los Muertos, and originally Aztecan celebration for the dead. When Catholic Spanish conquistadors colonized Central and Southern America, they brought with them Pope Gregory IV's kind of doctrine on remembrance of the dead. On the days surrounding October 31st. I almost said 34th again, except there's no 34th day of October or any month. So it takes place on the days surrounding October 31st, but it kind of takes a different angle. Rather than mourning and remembering the dead in a somber fashion, it's more of like a celebration of their lives, and it's generally pretty upbeat and lively. The basis of Dia de los Muertos comes from a collision of cultures, mixing Aztec afterlife beliefs with the Catholic ideology of remembering those who have been lost. And in fact, the Aztecs are believed to have celebrated a festival not unlike Samhain, in which they mourned the dead and worshipped the deities they believed could provide relief over their losses. Dia de los Muertos was and still is a grand occasion in Latin America. Thousands of people disguise themselves as skeletons, which is kind of the ubiquitous symbol for death, and dance and feast and make merry for 3 consecutive days, October 31st to November 2nd. So one commonality between these two separate festivals in different parts of the world is the Pleiades. So the roots of Dia de los Muertos resting with the Aztecs celebration of Mictec which is the governess of the lowest layer of the underworld. And Samhain is that they were both signaled by, as the Greeks knew it, the Pleiades star cluster reaching its highest point in the sky, which happens right around the fall cross quarter day. When it reached its peak and began its path back down the sky, it was a signal to the Celts that winter was coming, and to the Aztecs that Mictecoatl had reached her most powerful, and it was time to appease. So now I'll talk about Halloween's migration to America. So Europeans first began to colonize the Americas colonizing came around in the 1700s, late 1600s, but they were around, as we know it, 1592 and after. They began, the Scottish and Irish began coming over in the mid 1800s following the potato famine. As the cultural melting pot became even more diluted, All Hallows Day and Samhain made a triumphant return, kind of hand in hand. Gaelic ancestors shared the practices of Samhain and Clan Gaif, and the Christians migrated from Britain. Spain and Italy shared All Hallows Day and Eve. And from this, Halloween was born. We saw a return of traveling door to door, chanting trick or treat in exchange for candy, the carving of, thankfully, pumpkin jack-o'-lanterns to light the trick-or-treaters in the spirit's way throughout the night, bobbing for apples in the Peanuts movie, and most importantly, scary movies. So concurrently, Latin people began sharing the practices of Dia de los Muertos, and that also played a big part in the formulation of Halloween. Many of the popular horror movie tropes found in today's entertainment business can easily be traced back far, far ago in times long past, like witches and nuns being reminiscent of the criers and wailers walking through the streets, the headless horseman coming from that tailless black sow we talked about, the ghouls, ghosts, and demons coming from the souls traveling across the Milky Way, and creepy crawlies, spiders, and bugs and bats. That one's actually really interesting to me because those are scary to us because they actually kill people. So we have this kind of evolutionary instinct to be scared of creepy crawlies because they will hurt you if you're not. And that they were pretty big in those ancient festivals as well. Yeah, that's just about all I have on the history of Halloween.
I love this show. That was really great. Let's see. I'm not seeing any questions at the moment. So if anyone does have any questions, now is a great time to leave them down in the comments. And I'm gonna ask you guys the same thing I asked our viewers in the comments. What's your favorite thing about Halloween? Eli, you can go first.
I do like scary movies, so it's usually a good time of year for that. Is there anything like really big coming out this year? Nothing that I've heard of.
The next Halloween movie.
Yeah, that was the only one that I knew of.
Yeah.
I have never seen any of the Halloween movies.
I've seen the first one. Because we started watching the classics last year.
Yeah.
But Rachel, Brayden, what's your favorite thing?
Probably costumes. I don't know. I like getting dressed up and, getting to be something else for a night. I've always enjoyed doing that, but I am not a fan of scary movies because I do not do good with scary things.
Oh, you're muted. Oh, that doesn't say you're muted.
Oh, yeah, no, I muted my microphone.
That would do it.
That would make sense. No, yeah, I have a mixture, and that's I love horror movies and like haunted houses, like both of those even though I scare very easily, I don't know. I have a lot of fun with both of them. And yeah, I've also been like watching classic horror movies over the past year or two. I'm gonna try to watch The Thing sometime this week again because that's one of my favorite horror movies of all time, even though it
That's
genuinely terrifies me.
Is
that
that the
is my
one with
husband's favorite, and we watch it every year.
is that the
It's
one with Kurt Russell and they're at like the Arctic
Yeah.
like station?
yes,
Yeah,
yes.
Yeah, the people
It's
actually
terrifying.
stationed down in Antarctica, they watch that on um, the
Nope,
day that the sun sets, because the sun will set for 6 months down
nope,
there, and
no.
they have a tradition. They watch it the day the sun sets, leading into their 6 month of darkness.
Oh yeah, that's gonna be a no from me.
Yeah.
It's gonna be a big no from me. I love that movie, but watching it like while you're going into the eternal night, no, no,
Oh, it's not that bad.
it would be for me. I would be crapping myself.
No, I loved that when I heard about that. No, I think I have to agree with everyone. I just love everything about it. And also, it's just like the time of year where it's getting all chilly, and so I get to wear all of my fall clothes, and I just love everything about it. Yeah. All right. Well, I'm not seeing any questions come in. So, thank you, Eli, for that wonderful look at uh, what has led to our modern day celebration of Halloween. There's a lot of history in there, a lot of really cool things. All right, so let me tell you what's coming up over the next week of our Spooktober festivities. Let's see. On Saturday, we are going to do our show Beyond Bizarre. We're just going to look at the strange things in space. And then next Wednesday is Spooky Star Stories to Tell in the Dark. And so we'll go through some of the kind of spooky or creepier constellation stories from cultures all over the world. It will still be family friendly, but it will be focusing not necessarily on the constellations that are up right now, but just focusing on those kind of spooky stories. And then next Saturday, we are not having a show, but we will be sharing some information because next Saturday is International Observe the Moon Night, and there will be lots of moon viewings and things going on, so we'll share some information about that for that day. And then, of course, all of this is leading up to our big Halloween event outside the planetarium, which will be on October 30th from 3 to 5 p.m. We are doing a drive-through event again, where you'll drive through, pick up a goodie bag with some fun science-y / magical activities that you can do at home, candy, of course, and then we'll also have some fun demonstrations that you can watch from your car, and we will be throwing pumpkins off the roof because I will always take the opportunity, oops, wrong button, to throw pumpkins off the roof if I can. Although, I guess I won't be physically throwing them. Eli's going to throw them.
Yep.
So yeah, that is our upcoming week and the grand finale at the end of the month. You can always check out the events tab on our Facebook page to see all of our upcoming Spooktober shows and also find out more information about the Halloween event. Otherwise, thank you everyone so much for joining us. Just checking one more time to make sure there were no last questions that came in. I think we're all good. So yeah, thank you everyone for joining us. We hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and we will see you next time. Bye everyone.